Westone Audio. They're professionals because they make professional in-ear musicians monitors. So this is the AM Pro X30 and let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? David here from Prime Audio Review. So the AM Pro X30, 3 balanced armature drivers, coming in at a price of $479 US. Yes, it's quite expensive, as is most of their stuff, but keep in mind in the context of the price and the audio and the tuning, they are specifically designed for musicians as monitors, on-stage monitors. Inside the box, you get the standard Westone Audio carrying case, which is shockproof and waterproof, or at least to a certain degree. That's it there. And you also get a nice selection of silicone and foam ear tips. I think there's like, 4 or 5 pairs of each. Anyway, these are the IEMs, and yeah, they're really small. They're really small and cute. Have a look at that. So that's them. They are super small, look, compared to the Kiwi Ears KE4 there. So very small, so great for long sessions when you're working or if you're on stage doing a concert, whatever. And that's what they look like. This black thing here on the faceplate, that is the StageSense technology, and basically they've drilled a hole in the side so it lets some ambient noise get in so musicians can interact with each other and interact with the crowd and whatever. And when I say they drilled a hole in the side, it's never as simple as that. If you have experimented with open back headphones and you sort of put your hands over the ear cups covering the outside, you know what a dramatic difference it makes. So just simply drilling a hole in the side is not going to cut it. You have to completely retune the whole thing. So this is not just the Pro 30 with a hole, this is the AM Pro X30 with StageSense technology. So these shells are awesome, good selection of ear tips, although I will say, stay up there. I will say that Westone Audio really need to take another look at their foam ear tips, and in particular maybe switch to a different kind of glue, because these fit on these tiny little nozzles. They're so tiny. So yeah, they're difficult to do ear tip rolling. You basically have to buy replacement ear tips from Westone, or there are other solutions, but anyway, the tight is really quite fit. No, the fit is, oh my gosh, the fit is really quite tight.
That's what she said.
So when you put them on there, they're hard to get off, and it's very easy to damage the foam ear tips. Like that plastic core just rips straight out of the middle if you're not careful. So that's something that Westone Audio maybe should look at. I've decided to come in super close today because these are so tiny, but enough with all that stuff. Let's talk about how they sound. Once again, keeping in mind, designed for musicians performing on the stage. So not necessarily for audiophiles, but audiophiles are welcome, of course. So the AM Pro X30, quite a name. It's got a warm, slightly darkish sound signature, driven by a relaxed treble. Forward vocals are the star here, with a smooth, laid-back top end, which is of course perfect for long listening or work sessions. Let's have a look at the graph, and that's what it looks like. So you can see it's fairly linear from bottom to the top, except for that rather significant peak at around 10 kilohertz. I'm not going to dissect the graph because you got to put them in your ears and hear them to really know. You can't judge totally by the graph. It'll give you some idea, but it's not the end of the story. Anyway, in terms of bass, look, we've got 3 balanced armature drivers, so it's not going to give you a big thumping bass. It's just not going to do that. Balanced armature bass, very speedy, very controlled, actually quite a satisfying level of bass there. Even the sub bass, it's not going to rumble or vibrate your chest or anything, but you can hear the tones quite clearly. The extension is decent enough, but the bass is obviously light, bit less punch than the dynamic drivers and planar drivers, but as I said, very clean, very controlled. It's quick and agile. It doesn't bleed into the mid-range, of course. The bass notes are clear and distinct, but they stay in the background. They support the overall sound basically, but really the mids are the star of the show here. So let's move on to the mid-range, and yeah, the AM Pro X30, hate these names. It's all about presenting the mid-range instruments and particularly vocals. Now, despite being neutral and lacking an upper mid-range lift, vocals still come to the forefront, very forward vocals, and that's due to the light bass and a heavily attenuated lower treble. However, this tuning also leads to somewhat of a sense of dullness or lack of detail, and the separation of instruments is not super defined here, although they sound tonally accurate. Like the timbre is very good, so for a vocal monitor, yes, they're going to get the timbre just right, and the vocals are going to be right at the forefront. So if you are a musician, you need to hear the vocals in the mix. These are perfect for that. And then, of course, we've got the treble, and the treble is relaxed, which is fairly typical for studio monitors. The extension is pretty good, and that peak in the upper treble does add some air and clarity. However, overall, it's not a detailed treble. So you get a very smooth treble presentation, and it prioritizes comfort over precision, which once again makes it suitable for musicians and long listening sessions. You don't want to be having icy spears in your ears for hours if you're performing on stage. That would just be very, very awkward and uncomfortable. Potentially it's going to leave audiophiles wanting more in terms of articulation and brightness. And finally, soundstage and technicalities. Look, the stage width is quite impressive considering it's got that very vocal centric tuning, and that's probably due to the StageSense ambient filters there. However, the overall technical performance is somewhat disappointing, particularly given at rather premium price. And while that may be a drawback for some, imaging and layering are probably going to be less critical or less important for people doing live performances. They're not really going to be concerned with imaging and layering. They just want to hear what they need to hear in the mix. And in the case of the AM Pro X30, that should be the vocals. Anyway, time for one quick comparison. We'll do a comparison with the Westone AM Pro X10. Now the X10 is only a single balanced armature driver, and if you saw my recent video of the Katori Audio Vampire, you have some idea of how I feel about single BA IEMs. They just don't cut it. They can't. It's a matter of physics. They cannot perform. You've got to make concessions or compromises when it comes to tuning. In the case of the AM Pro X10, that is a very heavy compromise on the bass, which is nearly non-existent, and although the mids are quite forward, they lack body, they lack fullness. Not so with the X30. There's plenty of body and good note size for vocals with the AM Pro X30, but for the AM Pro X10, yeah, it's kind of lean, it's a bit thin, it's not, it just doesn't, you know what I'm saying? So to wrap things up, the Westone AM Pro X30 IEMs, designed obviously with a clear purpose in mind, which is for on-stage use by musicians. Now, seasoned audiophiles who are looking for an all-rounder IEM, don't look here. They're not going to do that for you. They are very they have a niche tuning specifically tuned for vocal monitoring. And that means they're not the best for just enjoying music. They're certainly not terrible, but you can do much better with an IEM that is tuned for full musical reproduction. So having said that, time to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, Par Family Audiophile style. If you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button before you go. If you want to support the channel, check out my little Patreon link. I might start putting some Patreon names up on the screen or give them a shout out. So that's it. Until next time, see you later.